Notre Dame is another one of those teams, Brady, as a Notre Dame alum. I mean, you win this game at Michigan, and it's virtually a pick-'em. People are going to start talking about potentially sneaking into the playoff for Notre Dame.
I just can't see it again. I think because they don't have that conference championship game, I don't think they can make it in. I think it would take mass chaos where you'd see a lot of two-loss conference champions across the Power Five in order for them to be looked at again. I think they have to go undefeated like they did last year in order to get a shot and an opportunity. And they've got their work cut out for them this week as they head to Ann Arbor to take on Michigan. Granted, they're coming off of a bye, but if you go back a couple weeks ago and look at that game versus USC, they let USC creep back into that game. There was a number of big plays made on the outside, and you better believe Jim Harbaugh, Josh Gaddis are telling their talented group of wide receivers and Donovan Peoples-Jones, Nico Collins, Tariq Black, Ronnie Bell, who I'm sure is looking to atone for his drop versus Penn State last week. Look at all the production that we could potentially make on this secondary. So there's opportunities out there for them. Michigan, the slight favored in this one. However, it's going to be interesting to see if Michigan's rush defense can stop the rushing attack of Notre Dame. That's what stood out to me. That offensive line's been physical this year. Tony Jones just had himself a day versus USC. And guys eventually at the end of that game for the Trojans were just turning down tackles because they didn't want to deal with the physicality that he's bringing to it. And they finally got their running back stable back healthy. And so they're deep at this position group. So look for Notre Dame to run the football, take care of the football too, something Ian Book's done a good job of at the quarterback spot. The defense has done a good job of getting those turnovers. And I think Notre Dame wins a tight game on the road.
Chip?
It pains me to besmirch my beloved USC Trojans, but I do believe that we're dealing in a big-time upgrade in defense when we talk about the physicality of USC compared to the physicality of this Michigan defense. And I think that that's going to be one of the big reasons that Michigan's going to be able to win this game is with that defense in a game that I think is going to be low scoring. And then for Michigan's offense, maybe we really did turn a corner in that Penn State game. Maybe Shea Patterson and the rest of that offense, things really did start to click. And now we are headed towards a future where they've got a better understanding of what Josh Gaddis and that offensive staff want to do. And they're a little bit more comfortable being able to operate it at a pace where they can be really effective and keep opposing defenses on their heels. Because, whether it is taking advantage of some of those advantages with the wide receivers or whether it's Shea Patterson being able to extend a play, I believe that Michigan, with a lot of heat on them coming off that loss against Penn State, I think they take the good from that game and they're able to double down on it. The big house in prime time against a rival like Notre Dame, I'm actually going to go with the Wolverines to win this one.
I think the challenge that Chip's kind of pointing out is if you look at what helped Penn State separate from Michigan last week, it's KJ Hamler. The speed, the dynamic ability that he has down the field making plays. I don't know that Notre Dame has anyone with that sort of speed and athleticism. Chase Claypool's big-bodied wide receiver, but I think the secondary for Michigan can probably match up with. Their best mismatch may be Cole Kmet, their tight end. And so how big of an impact can he have in this game? That's going to be the question. I think these are two very evenly matched teams. It really could go either way. The team that takes care of the football best is going to win the game in this one. And that's why I just trust Notre Dame right now as opposed to what I've seen from Shea Patterson and that Michigan offense this year.
Now, one team that could use a little chaos here, Notre Dame. Saturday night, they face Michigan. Really their final chance to send a message to the playoff selection committee. How dominant do they need to be to keep themselves in that conversation?
Well, fairly dominant. Maybe the last ranked team they're going to play. And look, Georgia's not doing Notre Dame any favors by getting upset to South Carolina. That's the only blemish on Notre Dame's record. But right now, that's a pretty shaky loss. If Georgia loses again, that's not going to help Notre Dame and their schedule and their chance to get into the playoff. They have to beat Michigan and basically boat race everybody else to have a chance because there's going to be a couple of unbeatens, a couple of one-loss conference champions, and that's the problem with Notre Dame every year in the playoff is they don't have that conference affiliation. They basically have to do what they did last year, go 12-0, hope after not playing that 13th game that they get in. But this is a huge game for Notre Dame. Last year they beat Michigan at Notre Dame. Michigan played one bad quarter in that game, Jenny. They dominated. I don't want to say dominated, but they kind of controlled the rest of the game and lost by a touchdown at Notre Dame. Michigan right now does one thing well, that's throw the ball. I think that's what they'll do against Notre Dame and try to pull the upset.
Michigan and Notre Dame coming up this weekend. Notre Dame, 8th-ranked team in the nation. Michigan number 19. They're a slight favorite at home in this game at the Big House. You look at Michigan, obviously played that game pretty tight, almost came back and won it against Penn State. Notre Dame coming off the bye, but should Michigan be, in your mind, and we'll keep it with Chip, should they be a favorite in this game?
Yes, but I think that this is a great line because it is truly a toss-up game. It's a game that I think is going to be very low scoring. I love the under in this game. I think that both of these teams are about on equal playing field, at least in terms of the national picture. Notre Dame has played better, but I think that Michigan in a couple key positions is a little bit more talented than Notre Dame. And so it's going to come down to, number one, turnovers. Number two, who's going to be able to handle the situation more. And so when we think about Michigan being a slight favorite, knowing the baked-in home field advantage of playing in the Big House at 7:30 p.m., 6:30 local, under the lights all day to get ready and get excited, I think that this is actually a really good line. And so I'm going to go with the home team here, but it's not because of the intangibles. It's actually because of what we have on film from that Penn State game, because I believe that we have a chance that the light bulb went off for this Michigan offense. And if you are going to take the good from that Penn State game and you're going to be able to replicate it, there's one spot where I would take you to do it, and it's going to be at the Big House. And so Notre Dame, I think a team that normally I would pick to win this matchup. I do believe it's kind of a coin flip. I love the intangibles, and I do love the momentum. I mean, nobody loves moral victory. No Michigan man would ever want to talk about a moral victory, but I think what they learned from Penn State, the success that they saw with the offense, how close they came to pulling off that win in the whiteout, I think it leads to a lot of good energy, and I think it leads to a Wolverines win on Saturday night.
Yeah, I don't hate that pick. I think the line makes sense. I understand why Michigan's favored, and I can very easily see a scenario in which Michigan wins this game. So it's not as if I see a ton of value here on the play I'm about to suggest, but I'm still on Notre Dame here. I'm still on the team that I trust more in terms of their coaching staff, in terms of their consistency, in terms of their discipline. And keep in mind, too, this is a Notre Dame team coming off a bye week. They're re-energized, they're refocused. I think that they understand as a team, as a collective, that this is probably the next big hurdle, maybe the only big hurdle remaining on this schedule to get to 11-1 and be able to mount a case for the college football playoffs. So I think the motivation is going to be there. I think this is a mature team. When you listen to Brian Kelly talk about his roster at his press conference this week, I think one of the common themes throughout is just the maturity of this group. And I think that they really trust this group to be mentally prepared for what's to come. So then, do I trust the players on the field? I do. I think Ian Book is going to take care of the football more than Shea Patterson. I believe that the Notre Dame defense is going to have a game plan that's going to force Michigan to play left-handed. I think offensively there's enough big plays in there from Chase Claypool and the like that they're going to get some points. And so I still lean Notre Dame here, but this is definitely not one I'm running to the window to play.